Another thing that I really like about these enclosures is the fact that they can be moved. So we're going to talk about the materials that you need and the total cost that I'm going to staple onto here. The bulk of the enclosure complete. So here it is. So a couple things before we get started. One, make sure you watch the entire video. Otherwise, when you go to build this enclosure, you're gonna miss a couple things here and there, and it's not gonna work out for you. Trust me, there's some detailed, not that it's hard, but there are some detailed little things that you have to make sure you do. Otherwise, this enclosure is not going to work. So watch the whole video. Two, these videos take a lot of time, a lot of effort. I enjoy doing them, but to encourage me and to keep me going, give me some feedback, subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it if you did. It's free, it's easy. Just click that little button right down below the video and subscribe, and that way whenever we make some future videos of some really cool things happening at Rose City Reptiles, you don't miss it. So I actually took the time to break it down and get some costs for you guys, because I know that is something that I wondered whenever I built my first enclosure, and that helps you just with like your future planning and things like that. So let's go ahead and get into the materials and the cost that you're going to need to build this enclosure. Now, I'm all about saving money and, you know, stretching the dollar. In this hobby, if you've been in this hobby, you know every single penny counts. And so that's why my enclosures are not these super elaborate enclosures. I mean, I hope they are one day, but this is where I'm at. You know, I just got to be honest with myself and my budget, and this is where I am. You know, in the future, I hope to build these big, huge walk-in enclosures with like plants everywhere, and like that's the goal, that's the future. But right now, these are simple, these are effective, they're escape-proof, and they work really well. So they're also affordable. That's what I'm getting at. So let's get into exactly the cost and what you need to build one of these. So we're going to talk about the materials that you need and the total cost, and then once we're done with that, I'm going to pull it all up on the screen and have your totals on there. So first, you're going to need some lumber. Total amount of lumber that you need to build one of these enclosures is 12 foot 8x4s. Okay, we use the 12 foot, you waste the least amount of wood, and so 8x4 by 12. So 12 of those are $6 and some change each. I have my receipt. I'll have the exact amount on there on our total sheets. So now we've talked about lumber. Now let's talk about the hardware cloth, because that's the second most, you know, expensive thing on this build. Total hardware cloth, you're going to need 46 feet. I can find hardware cloth for about $1 a foot. So let's just call that 50 bucks. So you need about $50 worth of hardware cloth. Now, to get a little bit more specific, you're going to need 5 pieces of 6 foot lengths, okay, and then 3 pieces of 64-inch lengths, okay, and that comes out to be 46 feet of hardware cloth. So 46 feet wraps the entire enclosure. So total cost of the lumber and the hardware cloth for the enclosure, the complete total cost would be about $125. I think that's pretty affordable for a large outdoor enclosure like this. Now, you're going to need screws and staples as well, and maybe a couple things here and there to make it complete. But still, this enclosure you can complete with spending under 150 bucks. That's a really good price, and that's part of why I use this build. It meets the animal's needs and it fits my budget. So with that information, let's go ahead and let's get started on this build. You guys ready? Let's go. So to make it a little easier, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I like to screenshot things before I go shopping. So I'm gonna make a little shopping list right over here for you. It's gonna have the lumber and the hardware cloth, and hey, you can go ahead and make a screenshot. So I'm just gonna, and all right. So hopefully you got your screenshot there, got my face and got the stuff you needed, and that will make it a little bit easier for you when you go to Lowe's or Home Depot to get your supplies. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the bottom base. All right, it's 72. So the two long boards here, 72 by 65, okay? So I'm gonna add that on the screen right now. 72 by 65. So you got 365s that go inside of the 72. Okay, now the most important thing here is that you're gonna lay all the boards flat. And that's the way whenever you put your screen on, that it'll have some more give and some more support. So very important, you cannot do it this way, will not work. So you have to lay it flat. So what you're gonna do on each corner, you're just gonna take a screw and you're gonna drive it in sideways here, and then do the same thing right here and drive it in sideways to secure each corner. You can also get some of those corner brackets. Let me get one. I have some. You can use these corner brackets and put them on and secure it that way. Costs a little bit more money, but it's a little bit easier. So either way works, but I'm gonna fasten all of this together and then I'll be back with you. Okay, we've got the bottom all fastened in. So now we're gonna set that to the side and work on one of the side pieces. Let me get those boards cut and then I'll talk about the measurements. All right, we've got our sides built, or we have one of our sides built. The measurements of this side is 72 by 32. So let me show it to you. So this board right here, 72 by 32. The 32 goes inside of the 72. All right, and then so for this one, you flip it upright, so it's a lot easier to screw together. You're just gonna take 2 screws, put it in right here and right here, and you're gonna do that on each corner. So I'm gonna fasten this together and then I'll be back. All right, took a couple minutes. We got that side all fastened together. Now we're gonna make the exact same thing again, okay, for the other side. So 72 by 32, you're gonna need 2 of those. So let me show you. Here it is, all fastened together. Now I'm going to go and get, I'm gonna cut some more 2x4s and fasten another one of these together. All right, I'll be back. All right, so we had to take a quick little break because it was raining and we covered up all of our tools with a tarp. Liam's now here, Shell's now here, and we're gonna get back to making this enclosure. So next you're gonna make your other 2 sides. These sides are going to be 64.5 by 33. I've got one of them completed. Let me show you what that looks like. Here it is right here. So we've got 64.5 and 33. You're gonna make 2 of these. At this point you've got all of your sides done. Let me show you what we've got. Okay, here's our 4 walls. Okay, they're 2 different lengths. Hi, Shell. Okay, so we've got our longer walls and our shorter walls. 72 inches, these the longer ones, 64.5 for the shorter ones. The next step that we're gonna do is we're gonna take our bottom base. We laid it flat down here on the ground, and we're going to take our hardware cloth and staple it to it. Now, for our hardware cloth, that's a little bit left. I've got these big rolls, 100-foot hardware cloth. It's 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch galvanized so it doesn't rust. I take that and I cut 2 6-foot pieces that I'm going to staple onto here. One piece will cover this side, then the other piece will cover that side. So I'm gonna get started on that next. Okay, so I've got the hardware cloth not stapled down, but I used a brick over here to hold it into place, and then I'm using my kids over there. Say hi. Hi. So they're holding it down on that side just to make sure I get it lined up. So this is kind of what we're looking at. I line it up about halfway down this board, all the way to the edge over here. And then next, I'm going to take the staple gun and I'm gonna staple it all down. All right, I'll be right back once we're finished with that. All right, so I was working on getting that stapled down. Let me show you a little bit of how I did that. In the corners, you can see, here's the staples right here. I add extra. I do like 5 or 6 in each corner, and then you can just see every, few inches, couple inches, I do a staple all the way around. This side, I haven't stapled yet. So you can see this side's loose. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay down the other piece of hardware cloth, and then they overlap each other a little bit, and I'll staple them both down at the same time. So that's what I do for just this middle board right here. So let me get the other piece of hardware cloth and then we'll staple it down. All right, the bottom is now complete. The hardware cloth is completely fastened down to the bottom. So here's what it looks like. As you can see, it's two separate pieces of hardware cloth. Here's one 6 foot by 3 foot rolled across and stapled down, and then another piece right here 6 foot by 3 foot rolled across, all stapled, fastened down to this. So now we're going to do the same thing with all of those pieces right over there. So let's get started. All right, it's now the next day, not raining outside. Shell is still here. Okay, we've now got our long side, the 72 by 33 inch, and we are going to put our hardware cloth on that. So just cut out a 6 foot piece of hardware cloth and we are going to staple it down. All right, let's get to it. All right, so we've got excuse me, so we've got both of our big sides and our base complete and stapled together. This is what we're looking at here. We've got both of the big sides. There's 1, 2, and this is our base, goes all the way across. Next are these ones over here. So for the next two sides, they're a little bit shorter. They're 64.5 inches. So that's exactly how you're gonna cut your hardware cloth. So you're gonna need two pieces of 64.5 inches. I've already got those pre-cut right over here. So I'm gonna take them, lay them out over there, and staple it to the frame, just like I did with the other ones. All right, we're getting close to be able to put this thing together. Right now you may be a bit confused, like, how does this work? But trust me, it's gonna be amazing the way it fits together, like you're building Legos or something. Everything just snaps right into place. All right, we now have our base and all of our sides done. So the only thing left to do is the door. But before we do that, we're actually gonna put this entire thing together and then build the door last. But this is what we're looking at. Right now it doesn't look like much. Just some frames, a base. I'm gonna go pick the spot in the yard that I'm gonna put it and start putting this thing together. Now this is whenever all of y'all's confusion finally gets figured out and you're like, oh, so that's how it works. So let me find the spot, carry all this stuff over there, and start putting it together. Okay, so I've picked out the spot of where I'm gonna put the next enclosure. Got it right down here. And I've got my assistant, my wife. It definitely helps to have someone to help you, at least at the beginning when you are screwing in your sides. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your long side and you're going to fasten it to the front of your enclosure. So I'm gonna hook it in right across this board right here. Now, keep in mind your metal needs to be on the top, not on the bottom. So the whole enclosure is going to be metal to metal. That way it is extremely escape proof. So let me screw that in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, I've got that fastened on here. Also lost my help. She just, really, this cage can be built by yourself, which is something I like about it. But let me show you why it's so secure. You can see right here, this is our bottom, this is our longer side. You can see it's metal to metal. Also, this board right here is on top of the other board. Let me show you from this side. You can see, and the screen from the bottom piece is in between here. So it's not only stapled in, but it's also sandwiched together by the 2x4s. So very secure. If the Tegus want to dig at this, they're just going to dig at the metal, and they won't be able to get to the wood at all, or even find, there's just no weak areas in this at all. So that's part of the reason why we use this design. It works really, really well for that. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our shorter side and we're going to put it right across this board. It's going to go from right there all the way to right there. So let me fasten that in, then I'll be right back. I'm going to show you exactly how I'm screwing this in case anyone has any questions about that. So let me get this flipped around here. So for the side piece, I'm actually going to screw this board into this board. So I just take a screw. So I screw that in right there. So now this is secure to that. So that secures your whole side. And then for the bottom, all you do, it's kind of the same thing. You just take your screws and I'm going to screw this board into the base. See, super easy to secure everything all together. It's extremely secure, metal to metal. The hardware cloth sandwiched in between your 2x4s. Even right here, it's sandwiched in between the 2x4s. This cage is escape proof, so all right, I'm gonna put the rest of the sides on. All right, so that wasn't too bad. Now let me show you what we're looking at here. We have the bulk of the enclosure complete. So here it is. As you can see, all that's left is our top. And in the next segment of the video, I'm going to show you guys exactly how we do that. But I mean, look at how secure this is. Metal to metal, all the metal on the inside of the enclosure. It gives them no points of weakness and really nowhere to get out. So, and having, and when you have your enclosure outside, that's a very, very, very important feature, because if they get out, it's not like you're gonna find them in your laundry room. They're outside, so it's pretty tricky to track your Tegu down after that. So this next part, I'm gonna show you guys how I'm gonna make the lid. So let's get to it. Okay, so I've started on the lid. I have my sliders in place. That's what I'm gonna call them. They are these boards right here. They go along the side, front to the back, on either side, okay? These boards are 64.5 inches, same as your short sides. So same length as your short sides. All I did is I took a spacer and I put it on top, made it flush with this board up here, and then I put a screw in. And then I did the same thing on the other side. And what's gonna happen is your lid is going to sit on top of here, and it's gonna slide back and forth. Okay, I'm doing this lid differently than my other enclosures. I'm kind of figuring out as I go, but hey, you guys have a video to make it easy for you. This board's not set in place yet, but there will be a board that goes across the middle that holds your lid in place and keeps it from getting pushed up. So, all right, I'm going to frame out the door and then I will be back. So, I need to cut some more hardware cloth. This is what it comes in. Just a big box. I get the 100-foot rolls of 3 foot by 100 foot. But this was ordered last year. I ordered a bunch, like several rolls last year, and the place I actually ordered it from Amazon, and they are no longer selling it. This distributor is no longer selling it on Amazon. So I need a new place to get hardware cloth. I would love to buy it somewhere local and support like a, you know, a local feed store, but the prices are just insane. Like, I was ordering this roll, I believe it was like $89.99. It was like right under $100 shipped to my door for 100 foot. And so if you guys have a source and you know where I can order this from for a similar price or even better, then let me know, because I'm on the hunt for some new hardware cloth. So this is it out of the box. I'll show you 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 36 inches by 100 feet. So if anyone knows where I can find this for a good price, let me know in the comments below. Okay, so we cut a piece of 6 foot hardware cloth. So that's 3 foot by 6 foot. And we're going to secure that to the back top of the enclosure. So let me show you. I haven't started stapling it on yet, but it's gonna go right here, stapled on. And as you can see, from the inside of the cage, it'll be metal to metal. So this is going to get stapled on the back. And once I get that done, I will show you all what's next. All right, I've got the top stapled on. And like I said earlier, the top portion of this I'm kind of figuring out as we go. I'm doing it a little bit different than how I've done in the past. In the past, I've done the doors that work on a hinge. And I can always cover that in another video, but I think this way will actually work a lot better. So I wanted to try this out. So let me show you where we're at. We've now stapled all of this onto the top. Now, look at what I did here. I did double rows of staples, okay? And that is because there's no board to sandwich this part on. So if a staple happens to pull loose, you've got a backup staple. And so you want to really put a lot of staples in this portion of hardware cloth just to be safe. And then what I did here is I screwed this board in and I stapled here, kind of bent the metal up, stapled up against here, and then stapled on this all the way across. And for this board, you're probably wondering where to put it. Let me show you. I took my tape measure, I measured from the back, and I put that board right here at the 3-foot mark. So the end of your middle support board goes to the 3-foot mark. And look, I measured, started all the way from the back of the enclosure and went to right here. So that leaves us enough room for a nice sized door, and so it should work out just fine. So now I'm going to cut some wood, get this door framed out, and set it in here and see how well that's gonna work, sliding back and forth instead of opening on the hinge. I think it's gonna be really nice, and you don't have to worry about that door falling and smacking you in the back of the head. So that'll be good for the brain cells. So I'm gonna get the door framed out and then I'll be back with y'all. All right, so we got the door done. We got the metal fastened to it, and I've actually got the door in place. The measurements of the door is the exact same as the side panels, the smaller side panels. So 64.5 inches by 33 inches. So that worked out perfectly. So makes it easy when you're making your cuts. Instead of 2 of those side panels, you make 3. 2 will be for the sides and 1 will be for the door. So let me go ahead and show it to you. It's a little snug. I think it will get a little easier to move the more I do it. The metal's kind of catching on the sides. But let me see if I can get this open. So here's what it's looking like. And here's the door. Like I said, it's kind of snug. I think I might do like a 1/4 inch smaller. But you see how it works. I mean, it opens up the entire enclosure without having to deal with the hinges and the possibility of the door falling on you. And then to shut it, you just pull it towards you. And then for latches, I'm just going to drill a hole right here. And then I'm gonna put a bolt in there. And the bolt's gonna go into here and then the board underneath. So 1 bolt on each side to hold the door in place. And you've got yourself an outdoor escape-proof reptile tegu enclosure. So a couple little things to keep in mind when you are putting this enclosure together. This is the front end. This is where you're going to be climbing over, stepping inside of the enclosure. Make sure that the metal that you have right here is not the jagged end. Make sure it's the smooth end. As you can see from this side, it is the smooth end. So that's something to keep in mind when you're putting this together. Otherwise, every time you climb over, you'll get a little poke in the leg or a tear in your jeans. So that's just one little tip that I've learned through trial and error. Another thing that I really like about these enclosures is the fact that they can be moved. I don't plan on living here forever. I don't know how many more years I'll be here, but when that time comes, you can move these. It's not easy, but what you do is you actually take out the hardware cloth that's on the bottom, you just cut it out, and then you move the frame, and then you just have to put in new metal, new hardware cloth on the bottom again. So I've done it before. It's really not that bad, but so that's an option, and that's another plus, and that's a reason why I'm using these. Another reason why I like these enclosures is I have a lot of shade in my yard. And with these enclosures being hardware cloth instead of like sheet metal, what you see a lot is that they allow a lot of airflow and a lot of sun. So even if, so the sheet metal would sometimes block the sun out, and then I went with these enclosures and they let in every bit of sun so the tegus can bask anywhere in the enclosure and soak it up. So that's another reason. So that's a couple reasons why I'm going with this style of enclosure right now. And also, this enclosure was inspired by underground reptiles. I just wanted to make that clear. That is the first place that I saw that this enclosure be used, and so I just wanted to give them a shout out. I've made some small tweaks and little adjustments and different measurements, so this won't be exactly like the one that they use, but just wanted to make that clear to everyone that, you know, I'm not trying to claim this as original, thought up by me. I'm not that creative. I don't consider myself very good at building these things, so if I have a model to go off of, then that helps tremendously. So yeah, this enclosure was inspired by underground reptiles. So, but we just made some tweaks. I think we made some improvements, made it a little easier to build. So yeah, that's it. All right, so that's it. This is how we build our outdoor enclosures at Rose City Reptiles. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, found it informative, and you learned something. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more enclosure builds and more videos coming very soon. Lots of cool stuff going on here. It's Tegus season, in case you guys didn't know. We got eggs dropping, we've got babies incubating. So make sure you subscribe so you can follow us along this spring and in the future. I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.